Hello, my name is Mono-Logues, and I'm inside your house right now. That's a lie. I'm not really in your house, but this month's episode of Mono-Logues is all about being inside other people's homes and the many reasons we enter them. From theft to espionage to friendship, there are a multitude of reasons we enter other people's homes, both illicit and licit. We are lucky enough to live in perhaps the golden age of home burglary, with our houses and flats chock full of expensive items like consoles, laptops, and clothing, and our police force broadly uninterested when people break in to steal said items. With restitution all but written off, we've worked hard to secure our homes against such ingress in a variety of ways: deadbolts, ring cameras, an ingrained generational reticence towards answering the doorbell. But when the tables are turned, we love to bring people into our homes, to show them our things and the ways that we've arranged them. We're going to be exploring a lot of people's homes tonight, and we're going to start with a love story. It's called Alice, and I really hope you enjoy it. It was a plain Tuesday morning in the Paradise recruitment offices. People sat in silence at their desks or talked quietly as they made the walk to the kitchen to refill their coffees. In the sole meeting room, Alice sat across from Julia, nodding and occasionally saying, "Okay," as Julia explained that as she had missed her targets for the third month in a row, they would not be continuing her contract at the company. "We'll need you to hand over your keycard and laptop, but then you're free to take the rest of the day off." "My keycard is at home," Alice said. "Well, then feel free to bring it in or just post it through the letterbox the next time you're in town." Alice nodded. That evening, just before midnight, Alice approached the office building. She was wearing a large rucksack and had a thick woolen cap pulled over her ears. She retrieved the keycard from her purse, scanned it against the reader, and entered the building, climbing the stairs to reach the Paradise recruitment office. She used her keycard once more, crossing the threshold as the door swung shut behind her. She moved past the desks and through to the kitchen without turning on any of the lights. It was a long room, with windows on either side, several tables and booths, and a central countertop with a sink, hob, dishwasher, and fridge. While cupboards and utilities lined much of the space beneath the counter, there was a gap underneath the sink, exposing the pipes and the small white tank that supplied boiling water to the tap. Behind that, hidden from view for those not crouched, was the glass panel of a door. Alice reached through the gaps beneath the sink and pushed at the door, which was open, then paused, before starting to clamber through, maneuvering her small body between the gap, pipes brushing against her head and chest. She twisted her arm and shoulder to move through, pushing the door open and dropping onto the landing behind it. Shuffling back, she pulled her legs across, and then, crouching on the other side, reached back to grab her bag. The stairwell was connected to 3 floors, with doors leading to the Paradise recruitment kitchen at the top, an impassable maze of pipes within the doohickey office below, and a bricked-up wall on the ground floor. At each level there was a landing a few meters wide, and Alice sat on the second floors, retrieving a sleeping bag from her rucksack, alongside several tins of food, a torch, batteries, and a copy of Atomic Habits. She headed up to the Paradise recruitment kitchen to make herself a mug of tea, which she drank while reading by torchlight, before going to sleep. The next day, at 9 a.m., she headed up the stairs and waited by the door. Lying on her front by the glass panel, she could see legs and hear voices. One of them, a woman, said, "Who was Alice again?" "She was here for a couple of months," a man said. "Quiet lady, pretty small." The woman made a noise and several of the legs walked away. Alice kept watch through the day, as traffic ebbed and flowed. Just after 2 p.m. she returned to the second-floor landing and urinated into the empty mug. At 5:30 Alice watched a hoover move across the kitchen floor, and an hour later saw the lights go out. She opened the door and manoeuvred through the pipes, walking around the kitchen, opening the windows, turning on the lights. She moved through to the workspace, where she stopped at a desk, crouching to smell the seat. Alice returned to the stairwell, retrieving a tin of meatballs from her rucksack, alongside the mug, which she carefully slid underneath the pipes before climbing through herself. She poured her urine into the sink and placed the mug within the dishwasher before cooking the meatballs on the hob. She ate at one of the tables, watching Tipping Point on the wall-mounted TV. This routine continued for several weeks. Alice would observe through the day and explore at night. On weekends she would venture out more freely and would occasionally leave to buy food and other essentials. After a while she started to eat from the kitchen, pieces of cheese or ham from the fridge, ends of bread, fruit from the bowl on the countertop. Some made comments in the kitchen about things going missing, but no one made any comments about her, or crouched to see her face, watching them beneath the sink. Alice returned to the same desk day after day, smelling the seat, opening the computer and trying passwords, sitting in the chair looking at the night sky through the window. One day a jacket was left over the chair, and she took it through to the stairwell, smelt it, slept wrapped in it. "It was on my chair and it's just gone now," a man's voice said the next morning, his legs pacing back and forth. "Maybe a cleaner took it," a woman's voice said. "It was a nice jacket too," he said. That weekend, Alice walked to Morrison's, where she bought a dozen tins, dried pasta, cakes, and fruit. When she returned, she found that her card didn't work. She tried it 3 times, before turning sharply and walking away from the building. The next Monday at 5 p.m, Alice stood across the road from the office. She was wearing a long coat and a thick hat. Shortly after 5:15, a man left, waving to a woman smoking outside and heading up the road. Alice followed him, walking towards the station and eventually heading past it, jogging at points to maintain her distance. Eventually he entered a small block of flats, closing the door behind him. Alice returned to her flat. There was a pile of letters by the door that she kicked to one side. She sat on her bed and opened her laptop. A week later, at midday on a Tuesday, Alice approached the door she had watched the man enter. Looking around her, she crouched and sidled up to it, retrieving a rake pick and tension tool from her purse. She inserted the tension tool into the lock, holding it in place with one hand while moving the rake pick in and out of the lock. The door opened with a click and she walked in, finding herself in a small lobby, with stairs curving up on her right. Alice knocked at the door for flat 1, then crept up the stairwell, watching from around the corner. After a minute she returned, retrieving the rake pick and tension tool and opening the door. She crept into the flat, looking at the coats hanging by the door, at the brown tiling of the kitchen, the dirty plates piled by the sink. She moved through to the lounge and spotted several photos on the table by the sofa, checking 2 of them before turning to leave the flat. She repeated this routine as she climbed the block of flats. On 2 occasions people emerged, and she darted out of sight, crouching in the stairwell, looking down, though none ventured after her. On the 4th floor she opened the door to flat 9 to find a sparse hallway, with 2 pairs of shoes loose on the carpet, and an empty coat rail on her left. She paused to look up at the square hatch overlooking the space. The kitchen on her right was bare too. She opened the bin and saw takeaway bags bulging out, smelt sour milk in the fridge, traced dust along the shelves. She moved through to the bedroom, spotting a small collage of pictures framed on the wall, which she eyed intently, before opening each drawer in the room, rustling through its contents, and closing it. She moved through the house, lifting rugs, moving plant pots, shining her torch under sofas and behind cupboards. After an hour she emptied a box of PG Tips from the kitchen cupboard, finding 2 small keys within it, one black, one blue. She placed the tea bags back within the box, returned it to the cupboard, and left the flat. The next day, Alice returned to the flat, wearing a new rucksack. She replaced the keys in the tea box, then returned to the hallway, opening the hatch in the ceiling. She clambered up, finding herself within the small rafters, just about tall enough to sit. Alice folded up the ladder and closed the hatch behind herself, then opened it again, before crawling forward, boards creaking as she moved. She looked around, shined her torch, waited, then left the flat. Over the Thursday and Friday she returned again, bringing in a flat wooden sheet that she rested over the rafters, and a small electric drill, which she used to make a series of holes within the ceiling. She placed a monocular over the final hole, looking down on the bedroom, the unmade bed. She closed the hatch behind herself and lay on the board. At 5:30 the man returned, and Alice watched him through her holes, watched him make a mug of tea, then moved through to the lounge, where he watched a Netflix show called When Missing Turns to Murder, watched him order a Deliveroo, leave to collect it, then sit on the sofa eating. He went to bed at 10, and she watched him sleep through the hole. Alice's routine was inverted. Now she roamed during work hours, cooked, smelt, relieved herself, and she hid during the evenings and weekends. She watched him order food, scroll through his phone, watch TV, call his parents, masturbate, sleep. Sometimes he would lie awake, rolling from side to side, getting up, staring through the window. Alice watched. She brought more wooden boards, which she hammered into the rafters, eventually lining much of the crawl space with walkways. One Friday, a few weeks after moving in, Alice was buying bread and tins at Morrison's when she noticed a woman looking through the ready-to-eat fruit. The woman was small, pale, with frizzy brown hair. Alice followed her, through the shop, to the till, and out, up St. James's Street, where she watched her enter a dog grooming shop and walk through to the back room. Back in the crawl space, Alice turned on her phone, which she hadn't used in several weeks. She looked up the name of the dog grooming shop, Rough Trade, on LinkedIn, clicking on a photo of the woman. She typed out a message to her, copying a number over from a WhatsApp group called Paradise Recruitment Mission Control, which a banner informed her she was no longer a member of. She turned her phone off, eating a corner of bread while she waited over the kitchen hole. The evening started much the same. She watched him urinate through the bathroom hole, holding his penis with his left hand and scrolling through Instagram with his right. He didn't wash his hands. She watched him make a tea through the kitchen hole. Through the lounge hole, she watched him sit on the sofa and flick through Disney Plus for 30 minutes, eventually watching the opening 15 minutes of Iron Man 2. He ordered a Deliveroo. He returned to the kitchen and grabbed a beer from the fridge. He watched another 30 minutes of Iron Man 2, alternating between Instagram and Deliveroo on his phone. He left to collect his food. He ate his food. He turned on the lights in the lounge. He finished Iron Man 2, opening Letterboxd on his phone and giving it 3 stars. He leant back on the sofa looking up at the ceiling, and Alice's shoulders darted up, but his expression was flat, and he simply stared at the white, featureless plaster for half a minute. His phone started ringing. He looked at the number, hovering his thumb over it for a few seconds before swiping right. "Hi," he said. There was a pause. He laughed. I don't know what you're talking about." Another pause. "It would be a very strange prank." Another pause. "What's your name?" Another pause. "Well, I'm not really doing anything right now. I'm up past the station, so it would take me some time." Another pause. He laughed. Okay, yeah, I'll see you soon." He put the phone away, snapping from the sofa. He grabbed the plate and moved through to the kitchen, stuffing the takeaway bag into the bin and washing the plate and cutlery. He looked through the lounge and kitchen once more, then moved through to his bedroom, Alice shuffling along the boards on her belly to keep up. He changed into a different shirt, grabbed a small bottle from the top of his chest of drawers from which he sprayed himself twice, then opened a drawer where he retrieved a condom, placing it within his wallet. He moved through to the bathroom, brushing his hair, brushing his teeth, gargling Listerine, he left the flat. Alice carefully descended from the hatch and went to the kitchen, where she grabbed a cloth and spray from beneath the sink. She sprayed the countertops and wiped them down, then moved through to the lounge, wiping loose pieces of rice from the glass table, cleaning dust from the top of the TV. She washed and wrung out the cloth and replaced both items, before grabbing the hoover from the corner of the lounge and hoovering around the sofa, moving it away from the wall to collect the larger pieces hidden from view. She hoovered the kitchen, hall and bathroom, before replacing the hoover in the lounge. She stopped under the hatch, crouching to rearrange the loose shoes in the hallway, before standing, pausing for a few seconds, and moving them back to their original placement. Alice climbed up the ladder and closed the hatch. She lay still on her back, looking up at the wooden beams. Just after 11, the man and woman entered the flat. They were both speaking very loudly, kissing, throwing items of clothing across the hallway floor. Alice watched, darting from hole to hole as they moved towards the bedroom. She was lying on her front, eye pressed against the monocular, and as he threw her down to the bed, ripping off his shirt, Alice leant up on her left side, repositioning her hand within her underwear. When I write, I like to imagine the spaces that my characters inhabit quite specifically, so, to aid me in that process, I often steal houses from others and use them within my stories. This is something I've been doing ever since I started writing nearly 15 years ago at this point. Even as someone who doesn't really track with a lot of description, I feel like the writer, me in this case, having an understanding of where the characters are within a space really comes across to a reader. To give an example, the flat in the story we just heard is the flat that I burgled as a 16-year-old, for which I was, in my infinite foolishness, caught, and for which I served a brief custodial sentence. Anyway, I received a really wonderful array of letters this month, and as always, I would love to read absolutely every one of them, but I'm afraid we've only got time for one, which this month is from a listener called Tony. Thank you very much for writing in, Tony, and thank you to everyone who sent me a letter. Dear Oliver, I wanted to write in and tell you about myself and my complicated relationship with the houses of Brighton. Growing up, I always knew that I was different. I wasn't like the others in my school, and as childhood bloomed into adolescence, it became clear to me that I was not interested in love or sex, with women or with men. It's perhaps hard to explain this to someone who is part of the conventional sexual spectrum, but I didn't take this as a great cross to bear. I was who I was, and that was all there was to say about the matter. I entered the adult world this way, and continued to live similarly across the next decade of my life. I worked in tech, finance, trading. I entertained but never warmed to others. I stayed healthy, I read, I learned to cook, to speak Italian and Greek. I cannot stress this enough. There was nothing in my life that felt incomplete or missing. I wouldn't say that I was particularly happy, but that didn't seem like a distinct possibility for me, so there wasn't some deep sorrow on my part about it. I moved to Brighton for work in 2022. I'd been in London for years, but I'd never visited. I didn't tend to visit places. I bought a house near Seven Dials and settled in. Things didn't shift immediately. There wasn't some snap moment of revelation, some religious epiphany, but over the first few months I did notice a stirring within myself, which grew and grew and gradually started to worry me. I was 30, seemingly quite settled, and I was unnerved that something new was occurring within me, a shift, shards of light breaking through the concrete walls. I was taking a lot of walks, which again was unusual, but I felt cooped up within my home, imprisoned by the white walls and the framed portraits and the gas hob and the flat-screen TV. I would walk down the hill into Brighton, loop through the level of 5 ways, sometimes trek through Kemp Town to Whitehawk and loop back above the hospital. There was something unthinking about this, but it wasn't detached, rather rapturous. feeling myself dancing through the streets, pulled between influences. Over time it became clear that I was drawn to the buildings in particular. This was a strange thing to navigate, as I'd never taken any special interest in architecture, design, you name it. I'm not an aesthete. But I was pulled to some houses more than others, dawdling to trawl my gaze across their weathered bricks, their archaic sash windows, their neat front gardens, or bare cement squares. Over time, interest turned to arousal, then to love. I don't believe that my love for a house is the same as the love between two humans. I don't believe that these grand or grotty buildings reciprocate my feelings, nor am I especially loyal. Rather, the love I have for them is more of an outpouring, a frenzied free-for-all as I whirl through the Victorian houses with their damp basement flats and the sleek modern blocks, and even the Regency masterpieces that line the shore. I don't know how to understand this, or whether there are others like me, but I am so grateful to have found love for the first time in my life. Many thanks, Tony. And thank you for your wonderful letter, Tony. Again, love is there, that driving factor between ourselves and the spaces of others. To finish today's episode, we're going to explore something a little different. Our next story stars none other than you, dear listener. It's called You're at a Party, and I hope you enjoy it. Can we crack a window or something? Joe says. It fucking stinks in here. You turn on the little desk fan and open the back doors of the van an inch. Peter's the worst BO, I swear to God, Joe says, brushing crumbs from the table. Just look at this, come on, it's like working with a 14-year-old. You put on your headset, the different audio streams coming through as a cacophony, then dulling as you mute them one by one. There are 6 monitors in front of you, showing a range of camera angles inside the flat. Are the targets there yet, you ask? Still waiting on a few, Joe says. Sam is out by the main road, so she should tag the others when they arrive. You nod, cracking your neck and settling into the chair, cycling through the different rooms of the flat. A thin kitchen with a door opening out onto a Juliet balcony. 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a lounge with a couple of sofas. There are maybe 20 people within the flat, though you can't see the hallway. You monitor the kitchen, Joe says. I'll keep an eye on the lounge. You turn on the audio, looking up to the camera feed. It's a high angle, probably hidden above the cabinets. There are 4 people in the room, a couple smoking through the open door, a man leant against the counter, and a woman pouring herself a glass of wine. How's it going? Graham, isn't it? She asks, coming through in scratchy bursts of sound. Shit, actually, he says, not to... What happened? Well, me and half the team got made redundant last Monday, which is shit enough, but not unexpected. It's just the person they sent to do it. I tell you, there's nothing worse than getting made redundant by someone with fucking blue hair. Like, come on, fucking wash it out the day you're about to fucking fire 20 people. And it wasn't just me, you know. Adrian, he's fucking 62. He's not going to get another job. Sue, Tsunami, we used to call her. She's a fucking moron. She's not going to find another job. And it's like, I'm 38, you know. And I just got laid off by someone with fucking clown hair. What a world. I'm sorry. It's just like, I don't know, this country's really going to shit, Graham says. Everything's expensive. No jobs. Have to send Keir Starmer a fucking picture of your face just to wank. Yeah, she says. And to top it off, our fucking miniature schnauzer's pregnant. Oh, she says. Yeah, the missus didn't want to get it, like, tube tied or whatever. Thought it was cruel. And now one of the other dogs in the dog park must have had their way with her and she's pregnant, so Muggins here is going to have to find the money to stump up for a fucking dog abortion, whatever that costs. It's a fucking nightmare, mate, honestly. He moves through his pocket and pulls something out. You squint at the screen. Want one? Graham says. No, thank you. Fair enough. Look, it's nice meeting you. I better go outside or Nigel will kill me. Where is he? She says. I think he's in the lounge. You tap Joe on the shoulder, saying, "He's in the lounge." "I know," Joe says, without turning. "He's been talking about celebrity traitors for 30 minutes now." "Anything useful?" Joe holds up his clipboard in front of you where he's highlighted several phrases. 1 million dead. Simultaneous explosions. Epoch, the latter of which he's underlined twice. You put back on your headset, flicking through the feeds. There are a few people milling in each bedroom. 2 men are doing lines off the toilet cistern in the bathroom. "Oh, that's Diesel," one of them says, coughing and spluttering. You switch to the main bedroom, where 2 men are drinking beers and looking out through the window. "So I'm out with my boss and all our kids last weekend, right? Grease the wheels, what have you. And all the kids are running around, and his son, I can't remember his name, 8 years old, right? Full 6-pack. "Fuck off," the other man says. 100% defined 6-pack on an 8-year-old. They can't develop that level of muscle mass. Well, this one fucking did. I don't know. I thought it was a costume or something at first, but nah. And I couldn't just ask my boss how his 8-year-old son had a fucking 6-pack, it's just not possible, the other man says. "Well, I don't have a picture of it, but I can ring my kids up and get them to say it. I'm worried they got surgery for him. I think the mum's trying to make him an influencer or something. World's strongest child, that sort of thing." There's a knock on the door of the van, which you realise is still open a crack. You open it and see Robin standing there with 2 coffee cups. She hops up into the van and you close the door behind her. "Anything good?" she says. Joe lowers his headphones and takes one of the cups from her. "We'll see," he says. "Nothing on my end," you say. "Lovely," she says. "Well, it's been drizzling for 3 hours now, so be grateful you've got a roof." Yeah, Joe says. "Well, I'm finished for the night, so I'm going to go home and sleep and leave you 2 to it." You nod as she clambers down, closing the door behind her. Joe's walkie-talkie splutters into life. Target's approaching. You put your headset back on and check through the camera feeds. Guests have cycled through the rooms. You catch snatches of dialogue. A woman's voice saying, "And to me it's not exhibitionism." A different woman's voice saying, "It's kind of a Greek-Mexican fusion, but small plates." A man's voice saying, "I don't know, mate. If we had a kid, it would really cut into my gaming time." Joe taps you on the shoulder and points to one of the screens, where several new figures have entered the kitchen. You click through to the audio stream, where one of them, a man, is talking. "So I was walking home from the pub the other day. Must have been close to 10. I was crossing the level and heading up into Mono-Logues. It was pitch black. I couldn't really see where I was going. I ended up tripping over one of those recycling boxes, which, in classic Brighton fashion, was full of wine bottles which went all over the road. And as I was picking myself up, I spotted someone lit up in a doorway. He was facing away from me, but he wasn't moving, wasn't trying to open the door. And as I followed the pavement, it curved, and I realised that he was leant against the door, holding up the letter flap with his left hand and wanking with his right. I called out to him, "What the fuck are you doing?" But he didn't notice or respond or anything. He was shaking, and I looked down and he was on tiptoes, sidling forwards to poke the end of his knob through the flap. And for whatever reason, I just stood there and watched these orange gobs of cum firing into the house, Classic Brighton, another man says. You look over to Joe, who is watching the same feed. "We should call it," he says. You shrug, and he picks up the walkie-talkie. "We've got 'em." You hear the knocks and shouts, and the sound of the door breaking. Armed police spill into the rooms, with some guests attempting to climb out windows, and others hurriedly tipping their drugs into the toilet. You sip the coffee, watching. People love to enter the homes of others. Some people will book viewings for flats they have no intention of buying, or attend artist open houses just to poke through gardens, check out kitchen countertops, see how much natural light gets through to the living room. Whether it's the home of someone you know, or the home of a stranger, there's always so much to glean, to entice, to trouble. What art is hanging up? What books are on the shelf? Is it clean or is it messy? Is it stylish? Is it comfortable? And then, finally, what kind of person lives here? If I was in your house, what would I imagine about you? My name is Oliver Logue, and this has been Mono-Logues.